Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dustin Kircher. I got my partner here, Ben Dreiser. We're with MHP Nation. Thanks for listening to us today. We have, I think, one of our biggest guests and a guest that we've been looking up to for the longest time since looking at the mobile home park space. We have Andrew Keel on our show today. If you guys don't know who he is, you're sleeping under a rock because he's got so much knowledge and so much experience in the mobile home park space. So we are super excited to have him on the show today. Just a little bit about Andrew Keel, and he'll go a little bit more into this, but he started buying mobile home parks back in 2017. They now have 46 assets under management. They also own some self-storage. Andrew has the an amazing podcast and YouTube channel called the Passive Mobile Home Park Investing Podcast. And if you guys aren't listening, you should be, because he drops gems every single show on that and has amazing guests. The one thing I liked about Andrew is when I first heard about him and started looking him up, I saw something that when they first purchased a park, they had a 50-point checklist for their due diligence. And now it's up to 350 on their due diligence checklist. And speaking as an underwriter, with my background, that is music to the ears. So I love that. So without further ado, Andrew, appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you guys. Dustin, appreciate the intro there.
Yeah, I mean, really though, when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, this is the guy I want to start following in the mobile park space.
Dude, well,
Yeah,
I'm super grateful.
we are really excited. You are kind of on, I think I speak for both of us, our Mount Rushmore of mobile home park knowledge. You and
Yeah.
Frank Rolf are kind of like our guiding lights, and honestly, where we learn so much of what we know, and probably one of the best podcasts out there for the space. One of the longest running, most consistent. So on
Well,
it,
thank you guys.
we look up to you in a big way, and we're super grateful to have you here today.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Happy to share, some stuff that I've learned from my mentors when I got into the space, because, Frank, Kevin Bupp, Charles D.
Yep.
Hart, and Jefferson Lilly, those were guys that I learned from. So I'm just kind of paying it forward.
Nice. Yeah. And I know, like I reached out to you maybe a couple of years ago, and you were just very down to earth with information. And it was like, okay, yeah, he's a cool dude. That's somebody that we'd love to have on our show too. Right. There's people doing lots and lots of deals out there, but do we necessarily want to have them on the show? No, because you also got to be a cool person and be willing to share, with everybody.
Yeah, share what you know. Totally.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the big value.
So I know offline you were kind of talking about this. You got 46 mobile home parks under management, and you started doing you own some self storage. But even before that, you started doing what's called the Lonnie business, right? Tell us a little bit about that and how you got into that.
Yeah, so it's kind of a crazy story. So there's this guy named Lonnie Scruggs, and he wrote this book called Deals on Wheels. And he basically was an old timer that taught people how to invest in mobile homes and mobile home parks. And a lot of people from Seco actually like knew Lonnie, and he would go to their events and things. So he's like, up there at Frank Rolf status in terms of like a legend in the mobile home park space. But I was a wholesaler in Central Florida, flipping maybe 4 houses a year, on the side of my W-2 job. And I was mailing out letters and doing bandit signs, the whole thing. And I got a lead from a probate letter up in Ocala, which is about an hour and a half north of Orlando. And this guy said, hey, I want to get rid of these 2 mobile homes. They were like mid 90 manufacture date, homes, vinyl sided shingle roof. But they were ugly and they hadn't been cleaned and they'd been vacant a long time. So I went up there and I said, hey, I'll pay you $2,200 cash, $1,100 a piece for both of these. And he did it. We wrote up the bill of sale. I got the title. And then I came home and got on YouTube and typed in how to make money with mobile homes. And Lonnie Scruggs popped up and he was like teaching this live course, and it was recorded on YouTube, of how to create mailbox money by buying these homes, fixing them up, and then selling them on contract to an end buyer. So that's exactly what I did with these 2 homes. I was able to sell them for like $2,500 down payment each right?
Mm,
So I got $5,000 right back, got my money back that I put into it. And then I sold them for $250 a month for 5 years. So I
nice.
created that mailbox money that Lonnie teaches about off of those 2 mobile homes. And I was like, this is it. I found my niche. This is awesome. I went on to do 19 more of those Lonnie deals. And that got me out of the rat race. That like covered all my monthly expenses.
Nice.
And that was like, this is it. I found my niche. Well, up in Ocala, I came across a mobile home park owner who eventually like took me under his wing, and I did a Lonnie deal like in his park. And then he was like, hey, you did a good job. Here, take a couple more homes that are vacant. I don't want the homes. You can keep that. I just want the lot rent. And I was like baffled, like, oh man, this guy is just tired or something. He doesn't want to, do this work. This is easy.
Yeah.
Some of them were in decent shape. They just needed like, just general cleanup work and trash out work. So yeah, met with this guy, became friends with him. He kind of became a mentor to me. We were out at lunch one day, and he's like, hey, I really think you should get into mobile home park ownership and buying that instead of just the individual trailers. And I was like, hey, man, I don't come from money. I can't afford that. I'm not a millionaire type of guy. And he's like, no, you can take investor money and raise it and pool it together from multiple people and raise it for like the down payment and improvements. And long story short, that's exactly what I did. I then went to Frank and Dave's boot camp and met my very first investor actually in the MHU boot camp.
Oh,
And
nice.
it just kind of compounded from there.
That's awesome. I mean, it's a good story. And I mean, it's like you started, I don't want to say from the ground, but you kind of started from the ground, like the actual units themselves. You
Yeah.
learned about those, and then now I mean, 46 mobile home parks later. It's that's
It's crazy,
impressive.
man. And it's crazy. And it seems like it just kind of happened, but it was, key things that happen. I'm a God, appreciative Christian. And like, there was certain things at certain times in my journey where God was like, hey, you need to meet this person now,
Hmm.
so glory to my heavenly father, because that's kind of how all this happened. Yeah, I hustled and did some things, but it wouldn't have happened without that
Yep.
divine intervention.
Yeah. I mean, the right connections, it's saying is, it's not what you know, but who you know. And
Yeah.
having that being there the right time for sure is amazing. So 46 parks later, now there's got to be some good stories about things you've learned, especially in the beginning phase. I think most people that listen to us are in that beginning phase too, right? As we are too. So, what is it that you learned in the beginning that is like, okay, I need to change this quickly, or I need to do this later on? I mean, we talked about you started with a 50-point checklist, and then you now at 350. So I'm pretty sure you got some
Yeah,
stories there.
man, I got really lucky with my first park where like the on-site manager was just a rock star. So I was like jaded a little bit thinking that all of the on-site managers were going to be just like fully awesome, like dedicated, employees. And I learned really quickly that that's not the case on parks 2, 3, and 4. Right. And it was like, oh my goodness, what have we done? And so we kind of had to change like the whole structure and do more offsite with the management in the corporate office versus, the boots on the ground.
Hmm.
But I would say that is a really big deal. And one thing that I try to do is either myself or the COO, John Scortino, who's been with me since day one, we will
Nice.
be the ones delivering the introduction letters when we buy a park, not because we want to deliver the introduction letters, but because we want to meet the people. We want to
Hmm.
meet the residents and find the one, diamond in the rough that is that on-site manager that's going to really, just be reliable and
Yep.
be, able to communicate with us and really have the best interest of the park in heart. So that's kind of the big thing I would say is take your time finding that good on-site
Hmm.
manager. It'll save you so much time later on. And then, yeah, take your time with due diligence as well.
Yeah. So with 46 parks, what so you have your on-site manager, but what I mean, you got managers that manage that manager, and what's that kind of structure look like for you at this point?
And a lot of people think that it's like this big hierarchy that kind of goes all the way up, but it's mostly flat. We have
Mm,
asset managers who manage about 5 parks,
okay.
and they are just kind of high level, everything from collections to creating notices to, utility accounts tracking and water sewer recapture tracking. And the on-site managers are more just kind of the eyes and ears and delivering notices. But we do have, a collections department of 3 people that like their whole goal every month is just to pursue and use different methods to get a hold and contact the tenant and communicate with them. And then we have an accounting department now. We have, investor relations department. We have, since we've
Yeah.
scaled up, now it used to be me, right? I was like wearing all these hats and taking out the trash and opening the mail. But now that we have a bigger team that can help support everything, we're just able to do more and manage properties better.
Nice. Who
Is
was your, oh, sorry. Just follow
I,
up to that was like, who was your first hire when you said it was you and your COO now from the beginning, but who was your first hire after that? Like, or came
It was
on?
a VA, an assistant
Okay.
that I hired overseas. And that was just, I mean, I highly recommend that for any entrepreneur to get someone to do the $10 an hour tasks that we
Mhm.
get caught up with. And honestly, most entrepreneurs like myself are not the best at, right? Like those $10 an hour tasks when I'm
Yeah.
just, banging my head against the computer screen is not my forte, right? I'm more kind of, flying high in the clouds and I need someone behind me that's more detailed and is going to like dot the I, cross the T, and make sure that things are done properly. So I think that every entrepreneur needs a good VA. For as little as $1,500, hire someone over in South Africa that would love the work and would be, I say, more reliable than a U.S. based person
Hmm.
and fully capable. I mean, fully capable. College educated.
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, this is incredible value. Back to the letter that you send when you initially acquire the park. Is the purpose of that letter to find the right tenant? Is it a letter almost like, let me see who the best tenants are here, so who they can potentially be the property manager? Is it like an SOP part of your system to find that person right out the gate?
It's not part of the system. The letter is kind of a blank template that we send for all of our new parks, just kind of welcoming us and kind of setting what our core values are and what's important, right? But in stating, hey, we have rules and we need to abide by them. But really the personal interaction of, hey, we're going door to door, we're seeing, how people treat us, right? And some people don't want anything to do with us. Don't they're not the most social people. They just don't want the interaction. And then there's other people that maybe are on social security, fixed income. They're home all day. They have the nicest home in the park. They're out gardening, and they're a little bit older, but they want the whole park to look clean. And that is our perfect manager, right? She wants to be management. She wants to be a manager of the park, not because of the extra income. She doesn't need it, but she wants the whole community to look better. And people will follow a leader like that. That's that servant leader that's willing to, go up to the front of the park and change the flowers around the sign once a month. That's the type of, on-site manager that we're looking for.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's incredible. And then one more question to go back. When you said you met the person at the seminar who invested into your deal, does that mean that you had one investor for your first deal and you didn't have to find 20 different people to give you $50,000?
It was actually like, again, like God kind of stepped in and was like, you're supposed to meet this gentleman. And it was an executive from Goldman Sachs who
Wow.
Mm.
basically wrote me a check for $5 million to buy my first 5 parks. So it was
Wow.
just him and me for the first 5 parks. And then I had, case studies and a track record that I was able to,
Yeah.
go share with friends and family and raise money through syndication.
Nice. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was definitely like one of those things where you sit down next to somebody, you start talking, and he had the money, but he didn't have the time. He was working 60 hours a week, commuting to New York City to work. Some people
Hmm.
commute, 20 minutes down the street. No, this guy commuted via airplane and lived in New York City Monday to Friday, and then got on an airplane and went home for the weekend.
Mm.
But had a lot of money, but didn't have a lot of time. And I was that sweat equity partner that, moved on site and, got these parks stabilized and executed the business plan. And we were, obviously the last 8 years when anybody got into real estate, with low rates, it was hard to mess things up, right? Like it was a
Yeah.
really good market. But at the same, we were able to refi things in 18 months after buying it, right? That's not typical, in
Yeah.
any cycle. So
Yeah.
it was just an interesting, very, very fortunate time.
So I'm curious, and this um for myself because and Ben, we've had had VAs, and I've one of the businesses had 9 VAs, but they're all from the Philippines. And you said from South Africa. Is that where your VAs are from?
We have some from South Africa. I'd say probably around 14 from South Africa. We
Oh, wow.
have about 10 from Armenia. That's
Oh,
another area that we've had a lot of success with. And then we
okay.
do have some from the Philippines, but most are in Armenia and South Africa.
And
Yeah.
why is it that region? What is you found to be better or more suited to your business?
Yeah. I mean, the currency exchange is what initially brought us there.
Okay.
There's very favorable terms to the dollar.
Yeah.
And then in South Africa, the language barrier, like it's like a nice kind of like British accent, the South
Mm-hmm.
African accent. So we use a lot of them for any sort of phone interaction, cold calling mobile home park owners and so forth. And then in Armenia, we found that they're very diligent, like very organized and very accurate and detail oriented, very good admins. But they're, the language barrier, the accent is very strong, so it's less good for phone
Yeah.
tasks. But they're also more assertive in Armenia, where it's like, hey, they're looking to get things done and kind of move the ball down the field, right? And they're not shy of having a tough conversation, which is,
Mm-hmm.
when you're managing on-site managers and contractors, you need to be able to have that to get things done. Or like a mobile home transporter that I was dealing with this week. He tried to push my move date. I was like, hey, dude, like I need this on Thursday. Like everybody's gonna be there. The plumber's gonna be there, the step guy, the set crew, everybody's gonna be there on
Yeah.
Thursday. And now you're trying to move me to Monday, because you want to have a long weekend with your buddies or something. I need you there on Thursday. And he's like, oh, all right, Andrew, I'll do it. But you got to have that tough conversation,
Yeah.
and you can't just let them push you, because then your pro forma gets pushed, and everything follows suit.
Wow. If the listeners get nothing else out of this show, just right there sharing about your VAs and their personality types and from the different regions is huge. I mean, that's going to save tons of money, and you just have the right people in the right place. That's amazing. I'm
100%.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna start looking it up after the show. So,
Highly recommended. Yeah. And the thing is you can use Indeed, and just place the
mhm.
ad in that location and say it's a remote position. And then we use a tool called the predictive index, where it's
Okay.
like,
Hmm.
it's a cognitive tool where it'll do like, not an IQ test, but like a cognitive function tool, and then also a personality tool. So
Yeah.
it'll show you like, hey, is this person a detail oriented person that's going to be good at this role? Or are they a social person that's going to want more social interaction on a day-to-day basis and working with a team? And then you can, try to put the right people in the right seats on the bus.
Yeah. Gosh, that's amazing.
Did you have a business consultant help you integrate some of these kind of processes? Because this is what we kind of hear on podcasts from some of the top of the food chain executives, kind of using these predictive indexes and placing the right people in the right places. Was there somebody
Yeah.
who helped you
Yeah, there was
there?
a productivity course that my partner and I took. Geez, I think it was like 4 years ago. And then we took like another shortened version that he put out. I don't remember the name of the person, but it was like a course of like productivity, business and KPI tracking.
Mm,
But yeah, I mean, it works, right? Like, I think that's what's come of this is it's like, hey, if we follow these processes when hiring someone, like the results are like way better than if we just kind of wing it and use our gut instinct when we're on an interview, asking someone, hey, tell me about your most recent job, right? Like
yeah.
those people almost always failed and like ended up not being a fit. But the people that like we had the predictive index, we had the personality type, we saw that like their cognitive score was, above average. It has worked out very nicely for us.
Yeah. I love systems and processes, and I see like when you have it running well, like I used to be a director of acquisitions for a hedge fund, and
Mm.
seeing them go from 0 properties to 5,000, because of the systems put in place and SLPs put in place and seeing how well that was running. I love that. I don't like doing it myself, but I love it. Right. So I kind of geek out when I hear, like people like you talking about this stuff because I see the value to it in building a company. Right.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, it's having the time to think about them, right? Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, you start sprinting and you're in it, right? And you're taking the
Mhm.
trash out, you're opening the mail, you're doing the books, you're doing the sales calls, but then having that breathing time to just say, hey, I need to systematize this. Who would be better at this than I am, right? Who can I put in this seat to handle this task? And when you scale up, which mobile home parks has been a great asset class to do that because it is so consistent. You're going to do the same things every month on the same days, right? We have a 5-day grace period. On the 6th, they get the pay or quit notices. It's very consistent. So it's a great business to implement systems and to, scale up. It definitely compounds and you get that economies of scale.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's incredible. Another question. I know for Dustin and I, we've been doing this podcast for about a year, and it's been kind of a blessing for us, just the people we get to meet, the connections, the deals that have surfaced because of it. Can you talk about, as one of or the top podcaster in the space, kind of what the podcast has done for you and what it has manifested into your experience?
Yeah, 100%. I love the podcast platform. It started out that I was an avid listener, right? Like I would listen to whatever content I can get my hands on. And you can go down these rabbit holes of like, okay, I'm interested in this part of the business right now. And I'm interested in property management as a whole. And then I can kind of go down and find a ton of different, free, valuable content that's out there, right? And again, I'll say it's free content that's like just
Mhm.
out there ready for you. If you want to learn it, all you have to do is take the time to find it, which is just so awesome in the world we live in. But yeah, I think one of the biggest value that it's brought to me is the connections, right? Like I have people that I reach out to if I'm entering a new state or a new market that we don't own in. I have other operators that I can wholesale deals to or ask questions of. I just have a Rolodex of contacts that I've built up that like I could reach out to and say, hey, dude, I need help with this. Hey, my insurance agent is doing this audit thing. Can you help me? Like, I know you mentioned you went through something similar. So I think that's a big part of it. And then, also the exposure, right? It's kind of, get your name out there and you're able to like, have better conversations with lenders, with vendors, and so forth. So it's definitely a great platform, and you guys do it great, right? You're leading with value, right? You can't just be out there kind of bragging about your story. It's got to be true value, or people aren't going to listen.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's where we came about. We're like, well, we're going to connect with the right people and it's going to provide value and we'll share our experience along the way, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes.
So it's yeah, I love it. And that's why, your show has been amazing to listen to. So
Well, thank
I
you guys.
what is, I mean, 2017 you started, obviously things have changed now. What is the biggest challenge you're kind of seeing right now in the mobile home park space?
Yeah, biggest challenge I would say is sourcing deals
Hmm.
and getting deals that actually pencil out, right?
Yeah.
Because interest rates, I'm getting quoted 8% still to this day from
Mm,
like the major regional players that we usually get our loans from. So 8%, and we're looking at something that needs enough value add to get to an 11 cap to create
yeah.
that 3-point spread that we're all kind of looking for. So it's that, and then also like I don't I don't want to go in there and have my only value add be rent increases, right? I don't want to raise someone's rent $200 year one to try to meet that pro forma. Like I think uh, there's just like a greater good involved here, and I want to do it the right way by improving the properties. And I just feel better at the end of the day when we are able to add that value. But there are mobile home parks that are extremely under market, and
Hmm.
it's just trying to find that happy medium that fits the portfolio.
Yeah. What does your marketing division look like? What's your main, I guess, outreach type marketing?
Main outreach is cold calling by far.
Okay.
But we do some, we have a broker network that we stay in contact with. We're checking mobile home park store. We're going, I'm mailing out letters, I'm sending out
Hmm.
there's this ballpoint marketing. Have you
Oh
guys
yeah.
ever
Yep.
seen that?
Heard of it.
So
Yep.
I'm about to do a campaign there. So I'm doing all the same stuff that everyone's
Yeah.
doing. It's just, we've been consistent with it, for 8 years now. So we have
Hmm.
relationships built, where like the first time you cold call someone, they're not going to like sign a contract that day, right? So
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah.
like, that's just the start of it. And then you got to, communicate with them and get them to trust you by building a relationship and being consistent. And then, hey, after a year or so, when the timing hits, then they're willing to sell and they know you and you're right there in their phone saved. So I think that's the biggest hurdle right now is just finding those deals and making them work.
Yeah, we can attest to that. It's definitely a difficult one. And like I said, you're going to get a lot of deals, but or sent or look at a lot of deals, but majority of them are not going to pencil out to where they make sense. So
Exactly. Yeah.
you touch base on the value add stuff, which is kind of this is the stuff that we like too. Um, Although we would love to have some great cash flowing right from the beginning, but uh, what is the kind of value add? You said it's not just purely raising rents, but are you doing infill? Are you rehabbing units? Are you converting all your units to TOH, or are you keeping some POH?
All of the above. Yeah. So,
Okay.
I mean, we've kind of been known for infill. We
Mhm.
started our own mobile home transport company out of St. Louis
Oh, nice.
about 4 years ago. So we have that helps us infill on a more predictable schedule.
Yeah.
But also submetering water sewer is a big, thing. We use Metron Farnier to submeter and then
Hmm.
have the radio reads where it's like more real time of the tracking. We're fixing up old park owned homes. We're converting park owned homes to tenant owned homes. I mean, our whole model is, hey, we're going to buy with a local bank. We're going to fix it up and do all the things that the agency lenders want. They want the paved off street parking. They want their hitches covered. They want, no deferred maintenance. We're going to do all of those things and get occupancy above 90%, less than 25% park owned homes. And then we're going to take it to the agency lenders and refinance out the initial capital with an agency lender, hopefully within 5 years. That's our game plan.
Yep. Nice.
And then as far as you were talking about park owned versus tenant owned, has your opinion changed over the last 5 years? And do you think the lending from your foresight, are park owned home parks going to be easier to get financing on?
That's a good question. I think there's bigger fish than me in the space, like UMH, who are doing, ginormous park owned home straight rental communities and being successful
Hmm.
with it and getting agency debt on them. But I do think that from an affordability standpoint, the tenant owned home model is a better fit. And I think that the agency lenders see that. And when you go to an agency lender, which is by far the best debt you can get in the mobile home park asset class, they want a lower park owned home percentage. And we went to market to try to get an agency loan. And they said, hey, here's your proceeds now with 35% park owned homes. And here's your proceeds when you get below 25% park owned homes. Basically, we were like highly incentivized to go give those homes away before we could refinance. And, what other business can you do that where you give something away, you give the title to the tenant, and it's a win because then your park is more valuable. It's definitely a unique niche.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, you don't hear a lot of people talk about that, the POH model and why. I mean, it's purely a lot of times you hear is, well, it's easier to manage, but you're looking at it on a numbers basis and a lending basis, and that, you know, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
and there's some people out there, some operators that are super. Hey, we love the park owned home straight rental model, and I think it is market specific, right? Like I'm looking at a deal right now in South Carolina, and it's a really good market, and the park owned homes that are like mid 1990 vintage are renting for like $1,300 a month. So it's
Wow.
like, and lot rents are like $400 a month.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
if you're truly buying one park, like many of your listeners, your first park, your second park, and your whole plan is cash flow, the park owned home model, you could buy one park and it could retire you, right? By
Yep.
just that one park with the park owned home model and renting them out. And especially if you live nearby and you can kind of keep a tabs on the expenses and the maintenance and things like that. But if you're trying to scale something larger and get that agency financing, that's where the tenant-owned home model really thrives. And, we've done I will say we have changed, Ben, where you said like in the beginning, I was like completely anti park owned home, where now I try to game the system. I try to say, okay, Fannie Mae allows me to have 20% park owned homes. So I'm going to keep 20%. We have 50 lot park. I'm going to keep 10 of the nicest homes as straight rentals because they're getting $1,300 a month. And then the rest of them will be at $400 a month lot rent. So I can still get the agency financing,
Mm-hmm.
but the cash flow is still high enough to, produce a really good return.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of how we're looking at it.
Yeah.
And are
No,
they during that park owned home rent? So the 20% of the park owned home rent and then the lot rent, are they taking all like the gross income?
They will
in
not. The
underwriting?
agency lenders will not. They will only count as if those park-owned homes were getting 400 a month lot rent. But at the bottom line, the real cash flow counts the extra income.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. When you're looking at it in the eyes of your returns to your investors, having that POH income, additional income is pretty good.
Oh, it boosts things, drastically. And we bought a park with 136 park-owned homes. This guy was treating it like a motel where it was weekly rentals. And he had like an
Oh,
office with a window in the front, and you had to go there and pay in cash only. He wouldn't take your money order,
oh,
your check,
jeez.
anything. And we bought that park and have converted to date 90 of the homes to tenant-owned homes. And that was, geez, about 2.5 years ago. But it's a process, because some people don't
Yeah.
want to own the homes. They just want the flexibility of renting. But
Mhm.
we've definitely learned a lot from the POH to TOH conversions.
Yeah.
Has it been a struggle convincing tenants to take the homes? Or are a lot of them privy, like, no, I don't want to deal with the tenants or the toilets and any of the repair work? Are they privy to that, or are most of them just excited to get a home?
It really depends. It really depends, Ben. And a lot of them at first think that we're like trying to trick them or something, that like, hey, something's off. This doesn't make sense, right? Like, I'm my credit's not good enough to be a homeowner. But then once we really, we need someone local, like our boots on the ground, like that park that has 136 lots outside of Nashville. It's a majority Hispanic park. So when we were going door to door trying to talk to the tenants and tell them, hey, this is a really good deal for you to own the home. Your payment's going to go from $800 a month to $400 a month. And, chances are you're not going to have $400 in repairs and maintenance every month. This is a good deal. They were standoffish. But then when we got someone that spoke Spanish that came in and was part of our team, that was like able to communicate to them better and just be like, hey, these guys are for real, this is how this is working, and really help sell the trade-off, they become more it kind of compounds, and then it just the waterfall effect, and everybody wants to do it really fast. So it's been interesting.
I wonder if part of that too is like a psychological thing where, when people are like, want to give you something for free, everybody's like, oh, really? Well, like, what's the catch? But if you
Yeah,
were like, hey, we're going to sell you some for $1,000, would you be interested? And then
sure.
see, doing like an A/B split test on something like that. That'd be quite interesting. We'll have to figure that
Yeah.
out.
And Ryan Norris, which I know you guys know, Ryan, I had breakfast with him one morning and picked his brain on this. And he has a great, like 3 to 6 month plan of how he does the POH conversions.
Mm.
And so I'm totally, Ryan, if you listen to this, I'm totally like, stealing this, but he starts with, the problem tenants, right? That like, that are like causing issues either with like
Yeah.
rule violations or just like extreme pushback. He'll start with them, and then he'll kind of, over the first month, second month, third month, convert people, and then, raise rents on the park owned home straight rentals, to say, hey, okay, if you don't want to convert, then you're going to have to pay X amount for the park owned home rental. And then people kind of come around. But
Yeah.
I like the model of going slower with it instead of just ripping the band-aid off, where you kind of go in phases. You say, okay, let's go with this, these people, their homes need the most work. And then if they vacate, well, then we can come in, we can rehab the home, we can put new skirting, we can paint it, we can reseal the roof. We can do a
Hmm.
lot to that home to improve the visual appeal of the park. As well, if that person wants to move out and, move somewhere else. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
lots of ways to do it.
that's a cool strategy.
It is. Yeah, I like. I'm just thinking about all these different ideas now you're bringing up, but it's great.
Yeah, and
So
Ryan says sorry, Ryan says that
Sure.
like, it'd be a third, a third, a third. So like a third will want to convert to
Mhm.
your RTO or to be a tenant owned home. A third will want to keep renting, and then a third will move out. So that's kind of how we've pro formed it, and we've always
Mhm.
done well with that, estimation. And we obviously in real life go slower, where we're not just like, okay, you third, you need to convert or your rent's, doubling. We don't do that. We just kind of say, okay, on a onesie twosie basis, for the first 6 months, let's see, who follows the rules, who doesn't, and then kind of filter out from there. Because I think that's one of the biggest things is like from the parks we've owned for 6 years now, they have like no issues because we've gotten rid of the bad eggs, right?
Yeah.
We had to filter those out. And now it's a very solid crew that like they know what they're going to get from us, and we know what we're going to get from them. Where in the beginning, there's some tenants that either the previous owner just didn't evict and they knew they should have, and they've kind of always been a problem, and they cause 80% of the problems, like the few bad eggs. So when
Yep.
you filter through the turnover to get them out, and then you spend the money on the rehabs. I think that's one thing that I didn't do in the early days. I kind of went cheap, right? I do the $3,000 rehab, trying to just get it by, instead of doing the full $7,000 rehab and getting like a quality tenant that wants to be there a long time.
Mhm.
So that was one thing that I learned early on is, hey, do the rehab the right way. It will always pay dividends. Otherwise, you're going to spend another $3,000 in 6 months when the person moves out. So you might
Yep.
as well spend the full 6 or 7 grand the first time.
Yeah. Love that. I'm curious, like, have you ever had like an uprising in one of your parks when you go through the converting to the TOH model? Like you say you talk to these three people first, and then but obviously they got friends within the park probably. So then they're like, "Hey, is your rent increasing or your pad rent increasing, or are they offering you the home themselves?" And they're like, "No." Have you dealt with something like that?
We haven't. We
Okay,
haven't.
that's good.
Usually, there will be like onesie twosie people that are like, hey, I'm related to them. I saw you offer them this deal. Can we talk? And then we'll
Mhm.
say, sure, sure, we'll talk. Here, this is what we offer them. We can offer you something similar. Which would you like? And then they, typically will convert. But it's never like where they're all teaming up saying, oh, we don't agree with this. This is a bad thing you're doing. We've been very fortunate where it's, and also we're not trying to like, I think that's one, misnomer is like we're these very greedy, charging like credit card rate
Slumlords,
interest
yeah.
rates, for our RTOs. No, like we charge like no interest on our RTOs. It's like, hey, we spent 5 grand rehabbing this. We'll sell you this for 5 grand with 2 grand down and just pay us off in the next, 24 to 36 months. Like
Nice, yeah.
that's what we're trying to get because we just want the lot rent, just like my mentor that got me into business. He just wanted the lot rent. He didn't want to rehab the home and go through all of that. So that's what we follow.
Nice. So I know we're approaching closer to an hour, and we do appreciate your time. Couple other questions is what we like to hear is like, what's one of the biggest horror stories you've had with throughout the 46 parks that you own?
The biggest horror story I had, man, I had one deal where the lift station went bad, and it wasn't one of the little lift stations. It's like the $150,000 lift stations. So that was a big deal, Thankfully,
How's it go
we
bad? How does that type of system go bad? I'm just curious because we don't have a lot of experience with that.
yeah, so it's basically like cinder blocks, tube in the ground, and this one was older, and we knew that, but the pumps had been updated. But just the volume, it was like 119 lot park, so it was churning through a ton of stuff. So we
Mhm.
had like filters, baskets, everything to try to catch the t-shirts and stuff before it got down into the pumps and all of that. But the pumps were fine, but it was actual the cylinder in the ground was like seeping,
Mm.
some of the gray water out of the hole in the ground.
Yeah.
So we had to basically replace all of that and get it resealed so that it wasn't causing like an EPA violation to the area. So I had to do a capital call and raise $150,000 that we didn't plan on, because we had a plumber look at it. He said, "Yeah, I've been servicing this for 15 years. There's no issues. We got to replace the pumps sometimes, and they're maybe 5 grand, but you should be fine." But then, we had like a smell in the health department, and, XYZ got involved. So then it was like an urgent, like, hey, we need the 150,000 or we're going to be fined, X amount per day
Mm-hmm.
that it's not. So, thankfully we got that fixed. And again, that's one of those things where, if you're buying a park with a lift station, take your time. Don't just have Joe Schmo plumber inspect it and tell you it's good. Make sure that you actually like put the camera down in the lift station and look at the sidewalls and make sure that like it's secured and it doesn't look sketchy, and
Yeah.
if it does look sketchy, then you maybe need to put a little bit more of an inspection into it. But yeah, that was just something that happened for us
Nice.
on that was my fourth park that I ever bought that happened on.
Wow. I really appreciate you going into detail. You're not just answering the question like an overview, high overview. You're going into the detail of what to do, and we appreciate that so much because
Totally.
again, we've never dealt with that. We've looked at some parks with them. We're like, I don't know if we want to get involved in something like that, but it's not knowing what you don't know, I guess, right? Is saying
Totally.
and you're explaining it in depth, and we appreciate
Another
that so
thing that a
much.
lot of park owners, like I bet 100% of people, like at least 90% don't have this on their DD checklist. But when you're going through a park with your electrical infrastructure, this was like, again, like the third park we bought, a lot of the power companies will supply the transformers. But in one park we bought, it was an 80 lot park. There was 60 occupied when we bought it, 20 vacant lots. We brought in 20 brand new homes, but they were all electric homes and they had 200 amp panels. So they required more juice than the older homes that were there previous. So the problem is that there was only 5 transformers in the whole park, and they were daisy chained. So there was like 25 homes on one transformer when you're
Mm-hmm.
really only supposed to have like 5 or 6 max on one transformer. So we had to install several more transformers, and usually the power company will cover that. But this particular power company did not. So we had to ante up. It was $60,000 to get these new transformers installed. And, because otherwise the homes, they were browning out. They didn't
Yeah.
have enough juice. So that was one thing where, hey, in due diligence, let's meet with the engineer for the power company and confirm while standing in the park who's responsible for what, if we need more transformers and what transformers go to the park and so forth, to make sure that there's enough juice and that the main line under the ground going to the pedestals has enough juice in it to serve, not just the homes that are there now, right? That maybe have 60 amp panels because they're these old 1970s homes.
Mm-hmm.
But when we bring in brand new homes with 200 amp panels, is the main line coming through big enough to serve those? And if it's not, who's going to have to pay to rerun that line?
Yep.
Wow. That's so valuable, especially we're looking at some bigger parks with some infill requirements. So that's something that definitely we didn't
Yeah.
talk about before, but we definitely need to be on
Yeah.
top.
Because I mean, imagine, right? Okay, we got to pay for the transformers and we got to pay for the trenching to get the line ran from the transformer to the pedestal. Where in, like, I would say in 80% of parks I've looked at, the park owner is responsible for the line from the pedestal, like the pedestal, and then the line going up into the home is where the park owner's responsibility ends. But in this situation, it was not that way.
Yeah.
So you always want to check going in so that you can at least budget for it, and then you have the money and you're ready, versus not knowing and then having to cut into your miscellaneous budget. Or if you don't have a miscellaneous budget, cutting into something else, and then it sets your pro forma back and your timelines get pushed back because you don't have the money to execute, your infill as you planned. So there's just a lot of factors that go into this. And that's why you really want to do, thorough due diligence.
Is this all now part of your 350 point checklist?
It
Yeah.
is. It is. And it's a lot. That's why, we have like a preliminary, due diligence sheet where there's like 10 phone calls that we need to make first. And if
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't make it through those 10 phone calls, we don't go through the rest of it, right? Like making sure zoning is set up properly, making sure we can bring in homes without, age restrictions or size restrictions, understanding setbacks, things like that. So that we do those
Yeah.
first, then we get into the more thorough, due diligence list.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
I do have a two-part question. One that I learned from you. One, what's the perfect park? What's the perfect buy box you would want? And then also, if somebody's investing as a limited partner into one of your deals, what should they look for from the general partner so they feel safe moving forward with that deal?
Wow. The perfect mobile home park question. I'll answer that one first. I think the best answer I ever got to that question is they said, hey, one that provides over a 15% cash on cash return, for every dollar invested. I think that's really at the end of the day what we're going for. We're not buying these communities to, brag to our friends at the country club that we own a trailer park, right? Like if we're being honest, it's, hey, this is an income vehicle that we're purchasing, and it's a business that we're purchasing. So I think it's nice to have a park that would qualify for agency financing and for life insurance debt. That's the best financing available, that has the curbs and gutters and fancy streets and all vinyl shingle homes and over 100 lots and direct bill private utilities. I definitely love all of those things, but there's been some deals that are maybe 70% of that are great assets that are easy to manage and have great residents that absorb, 5 to 6% rent increases every year, and have since I bought that property 7 years ago. And that's a great investment, because the value that you can add, consistently in a good market like that, year over year with keeping up with inflation and keeping up with rent increases is super huge. So that's my answer to that, Ben. And then, number two was, when you're investing as an LP, what should you look for in your GP, to make sure that it's, that they know what they're doing? Is that kind of what I was hearing you say?
It's a question. It's pretty much exactly the question I feel that you ask all your guests.
Yeah.
Maybe I worded
Because
it a little bit
I'm
differently.
curious. Yeah. And it's investing as an LP, because I do it at least once a year, where I invest with another mobile home park operator, and I learn a lot. Like I invested with Corey Harrelson on a deal near Kentucky this year. And, I'm learning how he's doing things and seeing his reporting and seeing his financials and asking questions and digging into his budgeting and so forth. And it's been a really cool experience. But I think, what do I look for in a GP? I think first off, as someone that has been burned by some sketchy situations, like I invested in an ATM fund that like through Dave Zook, and like they're having to like hire attorneys and sue the operator because it hasn't been paying out as planned. I invested in a another like mortgage fund that buys distressed notes, tries to get them performing again. It was called AHP. Same thing. They're going under, and there's this huge lawsuit because they're not paying out. So I think first off, I just want someone with transparency that's going to like tell me when things go wrong and communicate well, because this is real estate. This is not an annuity, right? Like things happen. And, I had an investor I spoke with this morning, and it was on one of the self-storage deals. And I had to say, hey, dude, yeah, like we didn't hit what we pro formed on this deal, but we did get a 10% pref paid, and we got your money out of the deal and we sold it. And, now we just have to go and get it into another one. But I mean, just someone that's going to like be real with you and tell you what's going on, I think is really important. And then also someone that's going to let you talk to other investors that have invested with them previously, and then when you talk with those investors, I like asking them, hey, if you had to change one thing about investing with Andrew, what would it be? And then if they say, oh, nothing, no, it's been great. I say, come on, there's got to be at least one thing, right? Like push them for something. And they say, oh, well, Andrew sends out distributions quarterly, and I really wish they were monthly, right? Okay, well, I know something, but, just like when buying a park, you got to do due diligence on the GP, and, you got to do due diligence on the park. So I think just making sure that they have a good, track record, which is like the most common response. They've done this before, they've been there before. And then also, making sure that, in your gut, you feel like they're going to be transparent, if things don't go as planned.
Yeah. Great answer.
Yeah.
So we're approaching an hour. I do appreciate your time, and we want to respect your time because I know you're a busy, very busy man. I know you have your website, keelteam.com. Why should people reach out to you? Are you doing coaching? I wasn't sure if you were doing that, or
I'm not doing coaching right now, but I do have a free ebook on my website that talks about the top 10 things to review before investing passively into a mobile home park.
Okay.
So that's a good ebook you can check out. I do have another ebook on my Instagram page that's like the top 20 things I've learned from investing in mobile home parks. So those are free resources.
Nice.
Just fill out your email address and we'll send those to you, and you can check those out. But again, my email or my website is keelteam.com. That's just KEEL, team, like a basketball team.com. And yeah, feel free to check us out, and would love to get in touch if you have a deal you want us to look at, or you're interested in investing.
Nice. And do you the properties that you look at that maybe you guys pass on, do you do any wholesaling? Do you do any type of or sign deals at all?
We do. Yeah.
Okay.
Last year and the year before, we were doing more of that. This year, I think we've only sent out like one deal that we passed on. It's just deal flow is just much slower, but we
Yeah.
do send out deals if it doesn't meet our criteria for whatever reason. And that assignment fee income kind of helps us pay for our marketing funnel. So yeah,
Yeah.
if you're interested in that, just fill out the contact form and put your email in there, and we'll add you to our mobile home park buyers list.
Perfect. Appreciate that. Well, Andrew, it's been amazing. I mean, there's some of the knowledge and stuff you've shared is either going to save people lots of money or make people lots of money. So, appreciate you going in depth in the questions and really helping us understand the process. So, thank you so much again for being on our show. And I know this is going to be one of the most viewed and most highly rated ones because you're just sharing so much great knowledge.
Oh, well, Dustin, thank you so much. You're a great host. Same to you, Ben. Thanks for the good questions. And yeah, I hope this adds as much value as possible.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.